Hi there again, everybody. So we just did jazzy stuff before. So this is jazzy stuff too, comp dat bass. So what I did here is I started with my basic structure that I did for my 251 song. Okay, I'm gonna rub this one into the ground a little bit, but we're gonna learn how to comp a bass structure to this. So your intro melody goes like this. That's your A minor 7. 2 measures, D dominant 7, 2 measures, G major 7, 2 whole measures, E dominant 7, and then again back to A. And then this turnaround here. Now, ideally this should have been made with a... We're going to go with this track on bar. We're going to call this a triplet feel. Now, the reason you do this in jazz, it gives it that da 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 1 and 2 and 3. So I triplet feel 8th. So now listen to the sound difference. Well, you'll hear it more when you hear it. Okay, so what just happened there is you turned around and you opened up with a flashy little intro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the view of this to multi-track. Alright? What I just did is I now show the bass and the drums. Now, the drums aren't going to be very important here, but I can actually take them from my other track. We'll worry about that later. But what do you do to follow this jazz line? When we know the chords already, I just pointed them out. But what you can do is you just start with your root notes, okay? Then you can tie that. Go up to D, tie it, and then G, tie it. Actually, hold on, I put that in the wrong place. Okay, so now you can hear it together. But what just happened here? Well, we covered that in the last video, so those are the E. So what I want to do is kind of chromatically walk this up. And now what just happened is you lead from the G, now you're leading back into A. So again, you can repeat that. Just basically do what you just did again. So when you move into the verse, you start this chromatic turnaround the same way. This is where the walking bass line comes in. So let's kind of build a walking bass line for this general 2-5-1 structure. This is just such a jazz cliche, all of this that I'm doing, which is kind of why I made this song. I wanted to just show off jazz, because I think it's really neat. The whole structure behind it is cool. But now we can start working with a walking bass line. Now there are different walking bass line patterns. So you start here at your root note. You're going to do the same thing here, dun, 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 dun. But then what do you do? So you can start going quarter notes. Just do a quarter note walk. This is going to be over your A minor. So what you want to start doing is making this sound with a minor tonality. So obviously you can either do one of two things. You can go 3-6. Or you can go 3-1. But you want to make it minor. Oh, I just did the wrong thing. 5-8. 5-8. Or again, you can go to that same note by going to the 3. Then you can go up to your 7th here. So what we just did was a walk. What we want to do here is make a chromatic walk into a 5, which is your next note, your D. So what I just kind of did here is made a basic walk from D. Let's hear how it sounds. But then you're going down in direction here with the bass, because you're going from here into the next guitar from a 3, you can see the 3, down from a 5. So your chromatic walk would look like that. So now you have to consider how you're going to go down. So you also have this same kind of walking mentality, but you have to go down because your minor 7 is being used in the dominant 7. Yes, there are two types of 7. You have a major and a minor 7. The major 7 is only used in a major 7 chord, while the minor 7th is used alternatively to make the dominant or minor tonality. The dominant tonality always ends up with this interval. This is the 7th interval, minor 7, but then you also have the major 7th interval, and then you have the 7th interval, or the perfect octave, I should say. So you just walk that up. Those are your 3 different, well, 2 different 7ths and then octave. So moving on, what we want to do is go down. So now your 7th is down, which is the same step. It's 2 notes below, 2 half steps below. So 1 whole step below your root will be the previous octave's dominant 7. So then you have, where do you want to go next? You can choose to go to the 5, which is a 4th down, or you can go to the 5, which is a 4th, which is a 5th up. But that's not the direction the music is headed. It's headed more bassy. So the music is headed down towards the 3. So what you can go down to is, and then do that chromatic walk again into the G, which comes next. So now you're left with I think I did something wrong. Well, either way, you just did a minor 7 walk. You just put your 7 here. Then you walk down to the 5th. The 5th below, which is the same as the 5th above by an octave. You separate them. 4th below is a 5th above, but for the octave below it, kind of like we discussed with the 7th. Now the 7th chord there will transition into the major 7 of here. So now you just walked from 4 down to 3. So now you're working with the G chord. Now you can always just go what was I intending to do here? So 7 now. Well, why did I pick these notes in particular? I just kind of did them off the top of my head. But here's your sharp note, your leading tone note, but I'm not leading into this note. I'm actually leading into an E, which would be an octave below on bass would be here, because if you go the next string up and then 7 down, that's a total of 12 steps, which is an octave. So that's my particular choice of these notes. Well, let's see how it sounds. We could probably have to work on this because this is going to be weird. Now it fits, but it could sound better because I'm not generally generating the 7. Well, why did I change that? So I generate the 7 in this measure here. When I go up and I put the 7 here, this is the root. And then I put the 7 in this phrase, and then I put Then I go back to the root and repeat. So 3, 6, 3, 6 would probably work. So let's see how that sounds. So we just do the 7, straight 7. Now it has the jazz feel, but it didn't walk you into the next note. Now, this isn't the bass line I chose to use. I kind of did more of a chromatic walk. So we'll go back and look at the bass line I chose for this phrase and why I chose it. So this is the exact same thing but with some drums. It has a more catchy feel because now you're using some ghost notes and then the good chromatic walk up, but I use a different feel. But what we're dealing with here is just straight quarter notes. So the entire bass line so far has all been quarter notes, selected based on the tonality of the chord you're playing on the guitar. So selecting your bass line accordingly means you have to understand what tones and roots you're using. So it works, but it's not using really the walking bass line structure. There are different walking bass line structures, but what I'm trying to do is show how you make the leading tone. So this interval here is a minor third, okay? You put that up here, it's going to be the minor third interval. Now this interval here from the root note is your major or minor seventh interval. So altogether you're left with a third and a seventh, no fifth. So that's what we used in this. So minor 7, no 5 with a chromatic lead. Okay, this is a leading tone. Leading tone in this case would take on like a major 7 tonality. It leads into your octave by 1 semitone. 4 goes to 5. So now we walked down in a way using the same notes, but now we have different. You notice where this was. If you put these two notes together here, what you had is the same thing as kind of doing this. But see, your octave is noted right here. So you would have to somehow manage to do that, but you can't really do that on bass because your minor 7 below is another minor interval. So we'll remove that and carry on. We have 5, 3, 5, 4. So what did we do here? We walked down. Walked down. Do, 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 do. But why did we choose these notes in particular to walk down with? That's because you have to think about it in terms of the 7th that you're using for this. The 7th in this is a major 7. But I also used a 9th here. In this particular riff, I used a 9th and then I dropped it down by a whole perfect 4th and then lead it back up. So. But the actual tones here that we would be using, if we were to repeat the same actual 7th, which would look like this, 5, 4, 5, 3, so that's your D major 7 right here. Whoops. D7, no 5. We talked about that in the last video, how it kind of corrected that for that. So what happens if we actually have this tonality when we use this bass line? Because it sounded a little weird before because of that add 9. Now I'm actually using the 7. Well, I had been all along, but I'm using the 7 with, well, this would take the, it's another minor step above, like here. But then you can also add your third to it. Now we do that. Let's add a third and see how that comes out. So we just added our third back into it, and now we can use the third if we wanted. We can add, oh, let's break it up. No, let's not do that. Either way, we have, so minor 7, 5th interval, and then chromatic lead again. So what does it all sound like together? It's using your 5ths and 7ths, your 5th, or, well, in this case, your 7th, and then your 5th. So it leads, no, this uses the 3rd and the 7th, and this uses the 5th and the 7th, which is out of key in this particular chord that we had been using. We just fixed it and adjusted it so that it now takes that minor tonality. And it also has the 3rd in it. Well, actually, I said that wrong. I had no 5. Remember when we didn't have this note here? So it became D7, no 5, but we can add the 5th back to it, which is A, D, A. Okay. So by using the 5th here, we kind of did a no-no. This should have been the 3rd, the minor 3rd, but we were leading up. So how do you make that a minor 3rd? By leading down, which is actually what you're using here. So we can use the same minor 3rd. Actually, it doesn't use a minor 3rd. It uses a major 3rd and the dominant 7. That's what sets it apart from the major 7. Is you both have a major, or both have a minor 7 degree in the chord, but both of them do not have the same thirds. So that's what changes. Your 3rd changes across the 2 and the 5 scale degrees, okay? Your 3rd is changing. You're now using a major 3rd. So what is a major 3rd with the root of D? So that would be, that's your F sharp. Wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, F sharp. So that's your major 3rd. Which your major 3rd on F sharp down here would be, so 2. Those are the same notes, sandwiched together. So you take your major 3rd, and you drop this. Oops. And that's where you messed up the last time. By choosing your 5th, that wasn't even in the chord that you're using here. You're not even putting your 5th into it, so it's not a stable note. But by choosing the correct 3rd to use for it, now you can walk down. Now this is the weird thing we're doing here. This is why I wanted to use this as a background track, is because what I let into here is not in scale. We talked about that in Jazzy Stuff 1. You're not in step when you're using this note here. This 7, this 0. 0 here, that's an E. You're walking down into an E. So E is actually supposed to be E minor in key with G. So keeping that in mind, you have to realize that you're also doing something weird here by adding an E major chord into it. But then you change it into an E7, and then you say, oh, aha, that was the trick you're using. You're basing it off of the you're basing it off of the 5th root of it. So your 5th from G is A, and then you use your dominant 7 from the key of A to make this E happen. This E and then its associated dominant 7. So it became a little musical trick of using a 5 of chord. So 5 of 5 and 5 of 5 7, which would be these 2 chords right here. So I just borrowed 2 chords from the key of A, and that works musically. Why does that work musically? It's not even in key, but it works musically because your 5th is such a strong resonance that that D in your key of G has a very strong resonance with any chords that you can have in the key of A, which is your 5th of. 5 of 5 in this case. Well, it's 5 of 2, who cares? It doesn't matter, that's like not even on topic. Most of this doesn't really seem to have much of a topic, but there is a topic. The topic is trying to finish this walking bass line. We're almost there, but we had to explain what we just started doing here. So I use a 5 of 5 to kind of add a little bit of musical unexpectedness into it. So what is this silly note here that doesn't sound like it belongs? Well, it's also this. It's your... Wait, I don't even think I did that right. It should have been 3/4. Yeah. Anyway, that's an octave up from this. So this is your dominant 7, or I keep saying the wrong 7s. I know better, but I say I don't. 3 goes down to 2. Well, that's your walk down. But you can also walk even further. So I just walked down into my E. But why did the E work? Well, the E is just, it's in chord. You're using an E. You're not using E sharp or E flat. Which E sharp would be F. So you're not using F or E flat. You're using E. And E takes on its minor tonality when you want to play in key. But I thought it sounded better with the major and then that. But I mean, as an exercise, probably in futility more than anything, we can change the whole tone of this down to a minor tone. Now we have a completely different song. I just made E minor and E minor 7, and now it doesn't sound as bright anymore. Do, do, do. No. So, what is the bass line for this? Well, what I chose in 251 was to, what did I do? This is your E, falls under your E, so it's an octave, another octave with a different syncopation, and then chromatic lead to really nowhere in particular. It's supposed to lead down to A, but it's actually leading down to G, which was where you were. But then it leads into A. So what I could have done differently here is actually select 4. Okay, so it's the basic idea there of selecting what you want to have happen next. Your bass walks each jazz measure into another key, or I'm sorry, into another chord. So you're walking from this weird E that doesn't belong. You can also walk it up into a 5. So what did I just do there? Well, I just chromatically walked. Or alternatively, so now it's just kind of a walk up there. So I walked chromatically into G and then turned it around back to A. Okay, that's basically what I just did there. Musically, that works. That's perfectly acceptable. So I walked up to G, and then I walked up to A. So I just went walking from E all the way up to A. Alright? Well, down from G to E, then back from G to A. Alright? What did I do there? Now I ended the phrase A. This 8-piece A. This is a whole phrase. These 8 measures. So now my next step is another A. I just did the same thing over again. Well, actually I already did that before by having this intro here with the same structure. And now I just repeated it and I went into the B. So your A, your intro has A tonality, then A again, the same phrase. But then you switch it up with a B by going into what? Well, what did I do here for B? So it seems like the same thing, doesn't it? So A major, or A minor 7, D. Oh, but something new happens now. Now you just did the same structure up. up to B. So I took my two minors that are next to each other and I justified them next to each other. So let's see what that sounds like. So we go back. And then I went back to A. You see how I just repeated the same thing I just did again? B happened here. Okay, that was your different stuff. These are your B minor 7 chords. So right here, all of this is B minor 7. Well, actually, it said D over A, but if you put this together, that's what this B minor 7. Duh. But why does that work? Well, in the key of G, you have G major, A minor, B minor, C major, which is your 4th. 1, 4, and 5 are always major. That's why 1, 4, 5 works. It's all of your major chords in the key in a given key. So G, C, D, C, F, G. They are all the same structure, and that's why it's like all music everywhere. But then another thing it has is that dominant quality from your G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G, A, B, C, D. So G, C, D are your majors. You have 2 minors here, and then it sandwiches these 2 majors together with another B minor. C, so now we have D major. I mean, you can count them all out. You can just look it up. They're all the chords in key, but it's G major, A minor, B minor, like I just said, your 2, C major, D major, E minor, again, that's your minor 6, and then F diminished, because your leading tone always has a diminished chord. What is a diminished chord? Who cares? That's not even part of this topic, but it is important. It is very important, because if you want to properly lead back to your root, then you need that diminished 7. It also kind of squashes things together that are like 2 steps apart, like these 2 guys here, this 5, and then it's associated with B major, or B minor 7. And then back here to E major 7, which is what I used last time. Why did I do that again? Because that was your 5 of 5. It's still the same thing. I still used another 5 of 5, but I replaced G with B, and I replaced E with an octave up 5 of 5. Yeah, so basically I just repeated the pattern that I did below, but I just moved it up. So basically that means these 4 measures, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 at the bottom, and now it's 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7 at the bottom. Okay, so A, D, 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 now B, 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 E, E, E. You go up a step, 1 whole step, and then you drop back down. Okay, so how did I select my bass line for this? Well, I mean, I think you get the point. When you're walking these chromatic lines like this, you just walk from that using some of your chord tones and determining where you're going and how to walk into it. You just kind of have to feel the motion of the bass notes dropping down to where they belong, coming back up. There's a rise and swell of it. That's jazz comping in general. Now, I mean, this has already been a 30-minute little video, and I'm kind of getting tired of explaining the same topic, but now I hope I really rubbed it in well so you can really understand how to make a bass line. So, here it is, 251. And now it's 251. It actually almost is in real life right now. It's 2:47 p.m. I mean, if I keep playing it, I'm not going to want to stop listening to it because it flows. That's how you make music flow in jazz. That is the best, one of the best flowing chord progressions you can actually use because it uses all of those sevens. And with that, this was some jazzy stuff too. Get out there and comp that bass.